What's the most awkward situation you've been in with a stranger? I worked security at an aquatic theme park and was watching Jeopardy in the employee entrance. One of the veterinarians came through and watched it with me for a bit. He says he watches it religiously and he'd passed the test for the show and was hoping to get selected. He'd heard that they like to have a diverse group of contestants and they haven't had a black guy for a while, so he liked his chances. A few days later, there are 2 black contestants, so when I see him leaving the next time, I say, "Hey, did you catch Jeopardy last week?" "No, why?" he responds. "Oh, there were 2 black guys on it," I explain. He just stares at me blankly for a few seconds and walks off. That's when I realized it was a different gentleman than the previous I had a conversation with. This is the pinnacle of all ex people look the same. And also an honest mistake, I want to say, by the way. I'm not ragging on anyone. We now have a Discord. Check out the server in the link in the description. Story 2. The most awkward moment of my life thus far was with a stranger. I was in Quebec Airport going through customs with my family. Because of some recent changes to their system, they didn't have everyone in a line, but instead in a large pen where they would release 50-ish people at a time. Chaos. When my family's at the front, they release us and everyone is running forward in a mass trying to get to the kiosks. Next to me is a tall Swedish man trying to get his family a kiosk. He is running forward and waving his arm behind him in a come on motion, clearly frantic. Well, somehow the worlds aligned where his middle finger and pointed finger went perfectly into my 2 nose holes. Like absolutely perfectly. Right as he ripped his arm upwards to motion his family forward. My nose was also ripped forward, and I immediately began bleeding everywhere. He looked at me in horror. My family looked at me in frustration as we needed to get a kiosk. The custom agents looked at me in bewilderment. The language barriers made the situation all the more awkward. OP. I gotta teach you about the word nostrils, because I just don't like the way that nose holes felt to say. Story 3. Woman at gas station didn't know how to put air in her tires, so I helped her because I wanted to put air in my tires and didn't want to wait all day to do it. She called her husband on speakerphone to let him know that she found some nice man to help air her tires. Then I heard him call her an idiot and say I'm only helping her because I want to bang her, and where does she get off talking to other men? She stammered and tried to explain that nothing was happening between us. After she got off the phone, she looked at me as if her husband just caught her banging me and got in her car and left. No thank you, nothing. And for some reason, I felt guilty for helping her out. Jesus, I feel awkward just thinking about it. Story 4. At the airport, I walk up as the elevator door is closing and there's a woman inside with a stroller. I slowed down because I wasn't in a hurry and would rather catch the next one. Then I saw a little girl about 2 or 3 is playing in a flower pot thing nearby. I realized she was likely meant to be on the elevator with her mom, but the doors are closed by the time I put it together. I walk up to her and said, "Did your mommy get in the elevator?" She just shyly smiles. I sit down with her and decide to wait in place for a few minutes for the mom to realize. A minute or 2 later, a man walks up and says, "Excuse me, can I have child?" in a thick Russian-y accent. I was trying to decide what to ask to figure out if she was his kid, when the elevator door reopened and the woman came flying out yelling for the girl. She hops up happily and runs over to the mom. I stared at the guy with an accusing look, then he turned and got into the elevator too. I don't know what the heck was going on there. Was he with them? Did he think I was trying to take their kid? Was he a creeper following them? So awkward. I literally sat silent through the whole encounter. Story 5. It was my first time voting in a presidential election in 2016 since becoming old enough to do so, and the polling place was at a library. When I get to the front of the line and start filling out the required papers, I mention it's my first time and ask what to do next. After hearing this woman who was working there and helping me raised her voice and said, "Hey everyone, we've got a first-time voter here," and started clapping so they all would clap as well. Nobody clapped, and I was just standing there really embarrassed before quietly saying, "Can I just go vote now?" Oh no, the woman working there definitely read too many r/that happened stories without realizing it was ironic. Yeah, this one so far takes the awkwardness cake for me. I would die. Story 6. Hooked up with a guy in college and fell asleep in his dorm room. I woke up in the middle of the night needing to pee so frickin' badly, but unable to find any of my clothes right away. I ended up spending so long trying to find them in the dark that by the time I had gotten enough to wear out into the hall to get to the bathroom, I didn't think I'd make it. He was still sleeping, so I grabbed a big reusable water bottle and squatted over it. It was blissful relief until I looked over and saw his roommate staring at me in horror. Story 7. When I was a teenager, my friends and I would spend the weekends staying up late playing video games and eating junk food. I was also a cross-country runner, and on this particular night I was experiencing some extreme chafing from a long run earlier that day. While we were at the gas station getting Doritos and energy drinks, I announced to who I thought was my friend, "Man, my nipples really hurt." Upon realizing it was a complete stranger with whom I'd just shared this intimate detail, I simply stared at him and said, "You're not my friend," and walked away. I didn't go back to that gas station for a long time. Story 8. I worked at Old Navy, and some lady was looking at men's shirts, and she stopped me and held up the shirt and asked if I thought it would fit her son. I looked around and no one else was there. We stood in silence for maybe 30 seconds before she started laughing and said, "Oh, you don't know my son, he lives in Michigan. We were in Washington State." "Never mind me, I'm just stoned." And then she went and bought the shirt. Story 9. At an art studio in LA, my girlfriend was wearing a denim jacket as we looked at a piece together. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the jacket and I reach over to grab her butt. A sudden, "Oh," comes from behind me, and a woman 30 years older than me is standing there, blushing. I tell her I thought she was someone else and run away to my girlfriend. A few minutes later, the lady comes and finds us to talk about young love and how cute we are while making too much eye contact with me. Story 10. I tried to make some moves on a girl when I was in high school. We were in a 7-Eleven near the back, and because of the late hour, I figured we were alone. When she turned me down and left, I decided to drown my sorrows with a bag of Sour Patch Kids, and physically ran into the older, bearded man who had been buying nuts. He gave me a sympathetic look and opened his mouth as if to say something, and I panicked and said, "See you tomorrow," and left the store. I still think about this nightly. Not only did OP get turned down, but he said, "See you tomorrow" to this random guy. Oh my god. Yeah, it's pretty awkward. Story 11. I was with my mom buying flowers at a florist for a New Year's Eve party. The florist was obviously a very lonely woman and wouldn't stop going on and on about how she isn't doing anything for New Year's, and how it's so nice that we have friends to visit, to the point where it became really sad. My mother obviously felt for her. Every now and again, maybe twice a year, she has a brain fart and accidentally says what she's thinking. That day was one of those rare days. After paying for the flowers, my mom said, "Thanks, hope you find a friend soon." I look at her in shock. The woman looks at her in shock, and my mom just gasps, apologizes, and literally backs out of the store. God, it was so awkward. Story 12. I used to do security work at parties. One night there was an alert call for a young woman gone missing. I found her with her dress hitched up looking for her underwear in the bushes. I managed to unlock her phone to call her dad, who, from his name, I recognized as the district attorney. He comes over to pick up his intoxicated daughter. While I was carrying her to the car, she was making very frisky remarks about me carrying her. All the while, her father is chewing me out like I was responsible for his daughter ending up that way, even suggesting that I had assaulted her. His lecture continued after I put his daughter in the back seat, still making these same remarks while pressing up her body against the car window. When the cops arrived at the scene, she was stark naked, putting her butt out of the window. I told the cops my side of the story, but as soon as she picked up my name, she started moaning it to the point of waking up nearby neighbors. I was brought to the police station for interrogation. Surveillance footage proved my innocence. 5 years later, I still see this district attorney on a weekly basis at my job. Story 13. Wife and I went to Europe for our honeymoon. We were in a train station in Amsterdam and I had to use the bathroom. I walked into the toilet stall and saw there was TP in the bowl and didn't think anything of it. I did my business, and when I tried to flush, it wouldn't go down. In a panic, I flushed again, and this only resulted in the water becoming dangerously close to the rim of the bowl. I said screw it and started to leave. However, right outside the stall was a bathroom attendant. He looked over at me and started yelling at me, asking why I was clogging up the toilet. He was blocking me from leaving, and all those other people in the bathroom looked in at us. God, it was so embarrassing I wanted to die. I eventually muttered sorry and brushed past him and ran out of the bathroom. Story 14. It was Christmas Day 2012. My dad had passed away the night before. I was flying to the city he lived in to make arrangements. My flight was mostly empty. However, there was a new mom on board. She was carrying her infant daughter, a soft-sided dog carrier, plus diaper bag, plus a purse. No stroller in sight. We land and I make my way to the bathroom. As I'm washing my hands, the new mom enters. She's flustered and exhausted. I look at her and say, "Can I help you? I'm a mom myself. My son is actually 5 weeks old." Without warning, she thrusts her infant to me, turns around and promptly drops her pants with the restroom door open and goes to the bathroom. I quickly averted my eyes and entertained the infant. When she was done, I asked if she needed help to baggage claim. Turns out her husband was waiting for her outside. Edited for clarification, the husband was waiting outside the restroom door prior to baggage claim. The lady and I exited together and she walked up to him, still carrying everything, and they walked away together. He did take the dog and collected luggage when we got to baggage claim. Story 15. I serve in the Air Force, and one time I got injured at work and had to go to the hospital. Nothing serious, just dinged my finger super hard. Screwed up the ligament. My finger was shaped like an N. Anywho, when I get to the hospital, I walk in the front door. I'm still in uniform, and some nice older man comes up to me and thanks me for my service. I told him I appreciated his support, and then he abruptly asked me if I was married. I told him no, and right at that moment he turns to this woman walking by heading for the door. He turns to her and says something along the lines of, "You see this nice man? You should go on a date with him." At first I thought maybe he knew the woman, maybe it was his daughter or something. But the shocked look on her face, I could easily tell he did not know her. She stopped for a moment and he asked her again, and she just went wide-eyed, kind of stuttered for a moment, and then beelined it for the door. I really didn't know what to say, so I just stood there looking like a guy who just got whacked in the head. The old man then turns back to me and says, "Let's see who else here is available." At this point, I just made some excuse about being late for my appointment and walked away. I don't know if I've ever been so red before or again in my life. Story 16. When I was 11, me and my brother went on a trip to London and spent a little time there with our parents. At that time, they used to work there. So I live in Romania, and I used to never leave the house back then, so visiting London was a big thing for me. Everything was so new and interesting, but at the same time intimidating, especially considering that I was very shy and in a foreign country. Anyway, our parents take us to Madame Tussauds Museum. If you don't know, it's a wax museum with celebrities, superheroes, and more. And I was baffled. The sculptures were very realistic and cool, and the entire tour, I was amazed. So we finished checking out the first room, and right before entering a hallway leading to the next one, there were another 2 sculptures of TV hosts or something similar. I was very intrigued by those because they looked more realistic than everything else. And one of the hosts was smiling wide with an open mouth, and I was fascinated by his teeth for whatever reason. So I knew I wasn't allowed to touch anything, but I slowly moved my finger to his teeth, and right before I almost touched them, boom, he says hello to me. It literally scared the crap out of the 11-year-old awkward shy kid I was back then. It turns out they were real people who prank innocents. After the scare, I felt so awkward, probably the most awkward ever until that date. It's not really that big of a thing, but I just wanted to share. Story 17. Went out for a car ride once, looking for things to take photos of, and came across this quiet little lake. I get out and walked through this little wooded area where there was an older man, maybe 60s. Things start out okay. He asks me what camera I had, and I told him, and why I'm out, etc. Harmless. Then he asked if I were alone. I said I wasn't, but that didn't stop him from touching himself. His balls, pulling on them, touching them, in front of me, and pushing to know more about me, if I were single, etc. And where I was from, but doing it like it was all so normal. As you can imagine, this freaked the absolute hell out of me. He followed me, and as I tried to get out of the conversation, he kept insisting, looking at me funny, and getting a little too close for comfort. I told him I had to go, and he insisted on walking me to the car, even though he knew I had someone in there waiting for me. It took me a while to push the whole ordeal out of my head. I don't think this is awkward. OP got harassed. Story 18. Worked at a hotel front desk 3rd shift, and an old, maybe 75-plus lady called the front desk and wanted a pillow delivered to her room. I took the pillow, and when I got there, she wanted me to come inside. I'm like, nah, here's your pillow. She insisted, so I did. I get inside, she shuts the door and tells me to put the pillow on the bed. She then goes to a drawer in her dresser. At this time, I'm like, I need to return to the front desk, thinking the worst. She then pulls out a thing of Band-Aids and wants me to put Band-Aids on her open sores on her feet. I noped on out of there as fast as I could and left before she came down for morning breakfast. Still freaks me out. Yuck. Story 19. When I was in college, I was waiting for a shuttle bus, and a girl I had previously been in a class with walks up to the stop with a guy I don't know. I say hi, how are you, and we have a short exchange of pleasantries. And then she turns to the guy next to her and in sign language says, I don't remember her name. So I sign back, that's okay, I don't remember your name either, and offer my hand to the guy with her and introduce myself. This doesn't sound awkward, this is just smooth. Like, good going, OP, but also, I think you just told that story to flex. Story 20. Being naked under a blanket in front of an ex's dad and dad's friend. It was mostly awkward for me, and it doesn't end in an extraordinarily funny way. Here's the story. Short version is that we had the house to ourselves, and we had just done some, activities in his living room, and he went to use the bathroom upstairs. I just sat on the couch naked under a blanket watching TV. Clothes were kind of piled on the couch next to me, and boyfriend didn't go fully undressed, so he took his with him upstairs. His dad came home early with a friend of his, and I pretty much reflexively hid up to my neck with his blanket and scooted over my clothes and just kind of hoped nothing was laying on the floor. They said hi and chatted with me a bit. Honestly, it was probably like 25 seconds, but it felt like an hour. And then went to the garage to work on something. I pretty much had to act like an antisocial weirdo by sitting, hugging my knees on the couch while just hoping they would leave the room and not question why I was sitting like a weirdo. It felt like a sitcom situation. X came downstairs only after they left because he didn't want to make it awkward, whatever that meant. So yeah, more awkward for me, but still awkward to be stuck like that with a random family friend hanging around. Story 21. I worked the entrance gate for a theme park. Our season pass holders used a biometric scan of their right index finger to verify their identity. One day, a little girl walks up with her family, who only spoke Spanish, scans her pass, and places her left finger on the scanner. I say, "Can you use your right finger, sweetie?" Then her mother raises the girl's right arm to show me she doesn't actually have a right hand. Seemed to be due to a birth defect rather than a horrific accident. However, her left finger just keeps getting rejected, so I call a lead over to override the old scan and redo it. He then proceeds to say the same thing to the girl, followed by her mother raising the arm again. It was definitely more awkward for me than the family, but it gets worse. About 3 months later, it happened again. The same little girl. Absolutely mortifying. Story 22. Me and 4 of my mates were pre-drinking at my house prior to heading out clubbing for $1 Corona Thursdays. We were all uni students and were all pretty much broke, so when the topic came up as to how we were going to get to the clubs, I suggested that we walk there, as it was only a 30-minute stumble and we could take road beers. Everyone except for one of my mates, which we will call Ben, was cool with walking. Ben did not want to walk and suggested that we take a cab. But we quickly ruled this out as cabs were expensive where I'm from, and Ben had no money to chip in anyway. After some back and forth arguing, I proposed to Ben that I had a bag that was full of coins worth about 40 plus, on the condition that he pays with that, otherwise we walk. He insisted on doing this. 30 minutes later, we all hopped into the cab to head to the clubs. I was in the very back of the cab while my friends were in front of me with Ben in the middle. It was one of those situations where I would need to wait for everyone in front of me to get out before I could put the seat forward and hop out. I quickly felt terrible, as sometimes you get cab drivers who are absolute jerks, but this dude was the complete opposite. When we arrived, the cabbie driver said that will be $26.50. My friends bailed out of the cab as fast as they could. But luckily, Ben kept his word and gave the cabbie the bag of coins while I was trapped in the back waiting for Ben to get out. The cabbie turns back and angrily says, "Are you frickin' serious?" Ben nervously explains that's all we had and that there's about $40 in there, but the cabbie was not happy. He said, "I am not frickin' happy, boys. Get the frick out of my car and next time just walk." This had my friends outside peeing themselves laughing. Ben got out and didn't help me get out, so I spent the next 30 seconds awkwardly trying to get the seat to go down, while the cabbie just said, "Hurry the frick up," with me apologizing. It was so awkward. Feel bad, but to be fair, he got a decent tip as we stopped counting at $40. Story 23. Once I was at a dog groomer's to pick up my dog. It's fairly small, 20 pounds, and white. Usually when I take him, he's got long, semi-curly hair, and when I pick him up, he's got short, straight hair, which is quite a change, and this is what I expect when I go to pick him up. I walk up to the counter and request my dog, and the clerk tells me he'll be outside in a moment. 30 seconds later, an attendant walks out to the lobby from the back door with a dog that immediately gets excited and tries to run away as soon as it rounds the corner to me. "Hey buddy," I say as I walk up and attempt to pick up my dog, but it turns around and starts recoiling back and gives me a nip as I try picking him up. An old man behind me asks, "Hey, is that your dog?" And me, thinking it's a pretty weird question, respond, "Yup." At that point, he goes, "I don't think so, mister. That's my dog." And as I turn, I realize this dog that looks just like mine after a grooming is 100% not my dog. My face goes completely red and the whole lobby starts laughing. To make it worse, the old couple whose dog it was stuck around, just because they wanted to see what my dog actually looked like. And of course, when he came out with a different haircut, there was only a vague resemblance. Yikes.